So let's walk through the 2026 Grammys with Jeff Benjamin joining us via Zoom. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, Saul. Good morning, Lena.
How's it going?
Oh, go. It's been a busy week post Grammys, and we have the Super Bowl this weekend. So lots of fun things happening in music, entertainment. But it's been a fun week.
I heard through the grapevine that one of the producers of the Super Bowl halftime show is in charge of the BTS concert that's kicking off in Gwanghwamun, and I thought that was really exciting. It makes sense, right? Because they want to stream it live on Netflix. A lot can go right and wrong, so they want somebody with experience. So I thought, yeah, why wouldn't it be the Super Bowl guy?
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't heard that yet, but I it makes total sense
Right.
because this is the Super Bowl tends to be the most watched musical performance entertainment moment of the year. So BTS is not going to be playing around with this comeback, as we know.
Absolutely. Apparently, to walk the routes that the kings once graced. I mean, if it can't get more regal than that.
I love that. Oh, now I'm even more excited. Okay, I got to check it out.
All right, let's take our listeners back to the Grammys. As we mentioned, yes, a glorious moment. The headline moment was K-pop Demon Hunters, but there were so many, I think, moments in between that it's worth taking notice of. So, generally speaking, and for those of who didn't get a look at the Grammys this year, what did you make of this year's Grammy ceremony?
Yeah, I thought it was a really fun ceremony. Sometimes these shows can be a bit not to say dull, but they can last a really long time. Award
It's
shows are very
long.
long. And the Grammys in particular, they have this pre-telecast ceremony where they give out, dozens of awards ahead of time. So I was watching that. I watched the actual show itself. But it was quite enjoyable in the sense that it felt quite young and relevant in the sense that
Whoa.
sometimes Grammys can feel a little more traditional.
Dated?
Some people have said that, but there was actually a lot of talk about how it really kind of leaned into more of the younger artists of today and the ways that, a lot of more artists are connecting these days. And, almost like as if the MTV VMAs and the Grammys had kind of flipped positions in that way,
Ooh.
that it felt a bit more relevant and a bit more, dangerous, I guess, in that way. On top of all there was a lot of political messaging put out there with major winners in the general categories like Billie Eilish and Bad Bunny taking their moments to kind of call out,
Ice.
government and,
Yeah.
and U.S. moments, ICE exactly. So it was it had a lot of bite to it, which I wasn't expecting.
And the thing is, you're right. I think we've always had certain expectations about the Grammys, and just like the Oscars, it's very well put together, polished. But the expectation is that people won't go out of staying in their lanes, do anything a little bit too extraordinary. But the fact that you're comparing it to the VMAs, it sounds much more spicy.
It was. There was this great article by my colleague at Billboard who wrote, "Yeah, when did the Grammys become the VMAs?" And so it's
Ooh.
a good article. Check it out.
All right. So the big headline was Golden from K-pop Demon Hunters winning a Grammy Award for Best Song Written for Visual Media. You watched it happen live. Lucky you. Can you talk us about this moment and what it means for, in your opinion, K-pop history?
Yeah, I mean, it was exciting because it was not like one of the first awards announced, but one of the first, maybe within the first 10 or so. And they did the awards that are kind of under the soundtrack, movie, TV, visual category. And actually, the first award that K-pop Demon Hunters was up for, which was the score soundtrack video award rather, lost to the movie Sinners. So I started getting a little worried. I'm like, oh no, we're getting shut out. This is going to be bad. But Golden did end up winning for the best original song written for visual media. And it was so cool because personally, I'd never seen at the Grammys a collective come up and accept the award speaking in Korean. And one of the producers for Under the Song is his producer name is 24, real name Jung Hoon So. He gave his speech at the beginning in Korean and then also gave a little bit of English. He gave a shout out to Teddy, and that was really cool. It was very special to see that, I thought. And a lot of people said, yeah, this is K-pop history. This is for the very first time K-pop has been awarded for at the Grammy Awards. This has kind of been an elusive place that, of course, BTS have done a great job and represented and gotten their nominations, but hadn't cinched the win. And here was finally in that moment, Golden getting that win. So it was definitely a source of pride and source of like, elation and shock and excitement and just wondering, yeah, what'll happen? What's going to
Well,
happen?
you're right. What's going to happen next? And I think that's really exciting because, as you've alluded to, I think Sinners is one of the most talked about movies of the year, right? And it's the Oscar buzz around that was massive. I think
Yes.
takes a crown for being having the most nominations this year, right?
Yes. Most nominations, if not
Ever.
most nominated movie ever. Yeah.
Right, right. I
So
think it outdid Titanic and La La Land.
yes, which is wild. And sometimes, something like the Grammys, which is, like we've said, a bit more of a polished, established, slightly more traditional, body of voters, they might see something like that and think, oh yeah, maybe that's where I'm going to lean, look at Sinners, which a great movie, great body of work, don't get me wrong,
Right.
versus something that might seem a little more you know, adolescent or childish with the idea of K-pop Demon Hunters being an animated movie. But I'm so glad that Golden was undeniable in that way, that, it really did end up getting the win regardless.
All right. So, in what ways do you see this win at the Grammys helping K-pop overall? Because that's a big angle, isn't it? Does it set the stage for more inclusivity regarding K-pop and non-English artists at the Grammys, particularly? Because I think that's one of the criticisms that the Grammys and the Oscars and the Emmys have all faced over the years. Is it too narrow in the scope in which they review or the standard or even the people who get to vote, right? The Oscars So White movement was all about that. Not enough representation of the body of people who get to say what is relevant and hot.
Right. And EJ, of course, the not only the singer, main singer in Golden for the Huntrix members, but also main songwriter in the song itself. She summed it up really well. She said that it's incredible to have the song Golden being sung all over the world. I'm quoting her, singing the Korean lyrics word by word. It means so much. I think this word is all about that representation. Today's about celebrating culture and music that unites all cultures. And I think that's a huge part, is that it's almost like this moment of representation and celebration and recognizing that, yeah, having this visibility, it's a really great step in the right direction. And when you have just such an undeniable cultural moment like K-pop Demon Hunters, like Golden being this multi number one song, seeing it getting recognized in this capacity, which, like we've discussed, the Recording Academy is made up of musicians and people who have, actual composers, people who have credits in music that's been released. These are the people, their peers, who have recognized this work as the best of the year. And that's quite huge. And I saw a lot of people saying that, even if this wasn't one of those main awards, right? Like Golden did not end up winning Song of the Year, Apatu with Rosé, didn't end up winning Song or Record of the Year or KATSEYE's Best New Artist. It's still a big step in an institution that, yeah, has long underrepresented K-pop, which has been so popular and making a lot of commercial moves. And now the critical acclaim is really bubbling to the surface in many different ways, but this one is quite undeniable, I would say.
just, I mean, how long ago was Gangnam Style? Is that more than 10 years ago now? But I remember us saying, is this just kind of a one-hit wonder? And that would be fair, right? Because I think what Psy was known for was, being a fun performer. And did that have longevity? Did that have, will it work the same way the second or third or fourth time around? Even Psy recognized that there was a shelf life. But we're talking years later, K-pop's relevance just seems to be expanding, and that's really exciting.
Exactly. And for someone who like loves the charts, right? Like when Gangnam Style hit number two, I was like, well, maybe this is as high as it's gonna go. Like that could be the reality. But I always did believe that, yeah, it's about, and I think a lot of Korean artists always kind of point back to this, is that it's about building upon the steps that the previous generations, previous artists had built for them, and almost like this responsibility to take it to the next step and take it to that next level. You don't see EJ saying, "Oh, this is,
It's
my
all me.
moment." She's partying and popping champagne. She's talking about how this is representation for the culture and cultures at large. So I thought that was a really beautiful tone, and quite honestly, for lack of a better word, the right tone to take in just such a significant moment. It was great to see.
Jeff, there's a conversation to be had about whether Netflix is K-pop Demon Hunters or Rosé's English album or KATSEYE or K-pop. There was an article on, I think it was The Economist. Is it dangerous to take K out of the K-pop, or is the definition shifting right before our eyes? It's probably the latter, but you get the gist. So, what's the status of that conversation today, following the Grammys?
Yeah, I saw, I was kind of like watching the media rollout of it all. And on one hand, like, lots of people saying undeniable historic moment for Korean pop music. I'm not going to argue with the New York Times when they say it's K-pop's first win. But there were a lot of other sides kind of bringing up the nuance of what this specific win meant, in the sense of, a song not majorly in Korean, has a couple lines in Korean, but that's sort of it. A song, yeah, like we said, created for a Netflix movie, not necessarily released in that, traditional K-pop promotional method or that rollout in that way. Does have the creators at their core being, people who do represent K-pop, whether that's EJ or Teddy or the producers, 24, people from the Black label. But yeah, I really like this quote. CNN had include a quote from the Associated Press, Professor Aryam Jung, a friend of mine. She's the assistant professor of Korean studies at Arizona State University. And she said how, Apatu and KATSEYE and Golden, she said, quote, seem less K-pop than other K-pop songs that could have been nominated over the years. And that nominations strike her as more of a territorialized hybrid idea of K-pop rather than the recognition of K-pop as we might know it. And I thought that was fair, in the sense of, deterritorialized is almost like this idea that, it hadn't necessarily been birthed from the way we think of K-pop being birthed in those, entertainment companies, those studios in Seoul, what have you. Not to say that that's even what these labels are focusing on these days. Everything is about being so global, thinking about, having your Japanese boy band and your American girl group and, what have you. But it's an interesting conversation to have. And I feel like it's a nuanced conversation, and it's interesting to see places like CNN and the Associated Press kind of picking up on this too, wondering, yeah, why wasn't BTS's, K-pop releases recognized in that same way, or why didn't, Blackpink ever get those nominations in that way? It's an interesting conversation to have, and I hope we continue to have the conversation.
And isn't it so interesting that major media outlets and dailies in the United States are the ones having this conversation, leading the conversation? I think that's a big shift too, and very telling of its relevance. It's the evolution of K-pop, and for one, am very much enjoying the ride. I'm sure you share the sentiment, Jeff.
Exactly. It's so fun, even if I don't know what's going to happen.
You don't have a magic 8 ball. It doesn't tell you what's going to happen next. Your guess is as good as mine, Jeff. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but I think that's a really nice place to wrap up. I'm sure we'll talk about it again. How
Yes.
do we define K-pop? Are the rules changing? Probably. Thanks, Jeff. Have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you, Lena. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.